Welcome to another episode of the I Know a Guy podcast. On this episode, I welcome lead singer from Little Mike and the Tornadoes, Little Mike. Little Mike was born in Queens, New York, and he's going to share stories about how he fell in love with the blues music, Chicago style, how he played different gigs in places all over the world, across the country. He's going to talk about how he met his wife on stage, and then he's also going to play the harmonica for us. Enjoy this episode of the I Know a Guy podcast. Little Mike, welcome.
I'm happy to be here.
So, blues, a blues singer, musician your entire life?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I've had other jobs, but basically, I've always stuck to blues, Chicago style blues. There's lots of kinds of blueses. I fell in love with the Chicago guys.
So you're born in Queens, New York.
Yes. So
your influence, you would think, would be New York stuff, no?
there's no really New York style blues.
Okay.
So I fell in love with the blues because I fell in love with Muddy Waters, and all the guys that played with him. So that's the way I play the harmonica, and so that's the way I do it.
Is that the most popular music growing up as a child? Was it?
No, it was never popular.
Never.
When I was growing up, Led Zeppelin was just coming out, and the Rolling Stones, and no, it was never popular, even in high school. I would put on blues records, and my friends would leave my house.
So what was life like in Queens, New York back when you were growing up in the 50s, 60s?
I grew up in the 60s. I was born in 55, but I grew up in an apartment complex. So on my street, I was in a building. There was three apartment buildings all connected, and there were 9 people, 3 on each floor, garden apartments. They weren't big apartments,
Right.
Just 3 floors. And then there was an alleyway, and then there was 4 more, and it was the same thing across the street.
You ever go? So I read you, age of 14, you picked up the harmonica. Did you play music before then? Did you sing before then?
No, I sung. Yeah, I always was a singer.
So what I'm trying to do is I kind of go back to when I think about bigger cities, I think about old shows I used to watch, like Family Matters or Full House, and I'm thinking about you going downstairs in the apartment, sitting down on the steps playing music. That ever happen? Guys playing in the alleys or any kind of thing like that?
No, there wasn't. There was really very few blues players in my neighborhood.
Okay.
I just fell in love with the albums. I had a friend named Robert Tiemann, and he had an older brother, and he goes, Mike, you play harmonica. You should listen to these records. And he gave me records by Paul Butterfield. He gave me a Muddy Waters record. He gave me a B.B. King record. I still have them all. I still have all the records that he had loaned me, and that's when I fell in love with the kind of music that I played.
So when did you first form your band?
Oh, probably like my first real band. I was probably like 21, 22.
Okay.
Before that, I would play with this guy, or.
So Little Mike and the Tornadoes, when did that happen?
Well, I used to work with a guy named Cab Lucky.
Okay.
Cab Lucky was from Lamar, South Carolina. He's about 20 years older than me. He's dead now.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a band, Lucky and the Tornadoes. Cab Lucky and the Tornadoes. And then he decided to stop playing. He had a job.
Mm-hmm.
We all had jobs. And I took over the band, Little Mike and the Tornadoes. And I played with that band locally. And my biggest break was Muddy Waters, because I fell into a great relationship with Pine Top Perkins, who was probably 40 years older than me. And he was the piano player. And I released my first album with Pine Top Perkins.
Wow. So tell me, what's that? So this individual and Muddy Waters, these are folks who had made their name in the industry?
Yeah. Most of them were from Mississippi,
Okay.
and they came up to Chicago after the World War II was ended, and they all went to Chicago, and they also got jobs, you know.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, Muddy Waters was a furniture mover, and he got a call from the record company, Chess Records, and he just left the job, just left the truck, and he went to record.
And he did very well.
Yeah, he did very well.
So you had a chance to play with him on stage and hang out with him at all, or?
I hung out with him, but I never played with him on stage. But I hung out with the sidemen more.
Okay.
And Pine Top would be one of them. Willie Smith was the drummer, and Calvin Jones was the bass player, and, you know.
What venues are you playing?
What venues? Well, with me, with Pine Top, I started getting into the Lone Star.
Okay.
You know, I could never get a job in the Lone Star, and then I got Pine Top Perkins, and now I'm like I would get one Monday a month at you know, and so I would build tours. You know, I'd build them for Fridays. You know, Pine lived in Chicago, so I would have him come out, and I would get like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, maybe Sunday we would be off, or sometimes Sunday and Monday we would play the Lone Star, and then he would go back. And then he gave my number to Jimmy Rogers, who was he was also a very famous blues player, and I used to do the same thing with Jimmy Rogers, you know, book him for 5 or 6 days and come out and tour, you know, and I did the same thing with Hubert Sumlin.
Wow.
Now Hubert Sumlin was a very interesting guy. He was Howlin' Wolf's guitar player. He joined Howlin' Wolf's band when he was 14 years old. And Howlin' Wolf took him to London, and he recorded with Eric Clapton, you know, because Howlin' Wolf put out an album called The London Sessions. And Clapton was on the guitar, and Stevie Winwood. You can look all this up, you know.
Yeah.
All these albums, you can look them all up. And Eric Clapton says to Hubert Sumlin, you could take any one of these guitars home. So he picked his black Strat. And, you know, that's his, like, main guitar, the black Strat. So he took it home for, like, 3 weeks, and then he sent somebody over to get it.
Eric Clapton did?
Yeah, he sent somebody over. He had to get the guitar back. He gave him something else.
What's the story behind that guitar? Why, you think he just wanted it back, or?
Yeah, he wanted it back. It was his favorite guitar.
Well, he said he could have it, though.
Yeah. He said, you could have any one of these. He picked his favorite one.
So did you ever have the opportunity to travel worldwide?
Yeah.
Over Europe and
Yeah.
play?
I go to Europe. I still go.
Do you?
Yeah.
Where do you go?
I go to France. I've been to Spain. I've been to Portugal, Italy.
And you play over there?
Yeah.
So do you take your whole band, or do you put
No,
together?
I have a French band over there.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Okay. How does that work?
Well, I have a guy over there named Eric Petznick. He is the drummer. He's like the leader of the band over there. And I tell him when I'm going to come, and, you know, and I have to buy my own ticket, but he pays me back, you know,
Sure.
when I get over there, and you know, I do 4 or 5 dates and I go home, just like Pine Top used to do 4 or 5 dates with me and go home.
Yeah. So what's that like being in Europe? What's the reception? You've got this guy from America coming to sing.
It's great.
Yeah.
Europe is by far the best place I've ever played.
Really? So are you in the outskirts of the cities of, like, Paris, or are you in Paris?
I've played in Paris. I've played in outskirts. I've played along the French Riviera there. You know, the beach there on the west coast. You know, of France.
Sure. Your music's very recognizable. I was out of town, away from the area, a couple hours away, over in St. Augustine, and was there one night at a restaurant bar, and I'm sitting there, and I hear, "Hey, good evening, guys," or something, and I'm like,
"Oh, that's an A1A."
Yeah. I'm like, I know that guy, and
A1A.
I turn around and said, "No, Little Mike." And Little Mike's in the house.
Well,
playing.
you can't make a living playing in one town.
No.
You have to travel.
Yeah.
You know, even the Chicago guys, you know, they didn't make any money in Chicago. They had to go on the road to make money. Pine Top in Chicago would make $100 a night. He'd come out with me, you know, and I'd give him 500, and he'd tell me, "Listen, I want 1,000." He didn't say 1,000. I want 1,000 next time.
So, where's that? What does music do for you? Because I've seen some of your videos, and I watch. You get into it.
Music takes me to a whole nother place. That's all I could say. It takes me to a whole nother place, and you know, and it just can't be duplicated.
It's an escape too, kind of, or just.
Oh, it's an escape, yeah. You know, like when you're a kid, if you have something bothering you, and then like you play a game of football or basketball, and then when you're done playing, what was bothering you isn't bothering you as much.
Right.
Unless maybe you killed the guy, you know. It's the same thing with music. If something's bothering me, I play music. When I'm done playing, it's not bothering me as much.
Nice.
Maybe it comes back the next morning. But that's what music does for me. And that's what music does for a lot of musicians that play it.
Yeah. So how do you get from New York to Florida?
So I was only playing in New York, and I was playing in, well, it wasn't only in New York, you know, because I would play in Massachusetts, in New Jersey, and, you know, and so I was in New Jersey, and this woman was with this band, Blue Sparks from Hell, and she gave me their schedule, and I called up. And I just called up these places, and a bunch of them gave me gigs. I told them who I was. I was, you know, by now I had New York, I had Little Mike and the Tornadoes, and I didn't have any albums out yet. I had a single out, you know, and I started getting gigs. And as a matter of fact, it's when I started playing at Rickenbacker's that I bought my house that I live in now.
Mm. And so you never left?
No.
But Florida's much hotter than New York.
Hotter, yes, especially right now, huh?
Yeah, it's that time of year. So have you ever had something happen where you walked into a gig, played, and went, you know what, I'm shutting it down and just walk off? Have you ever had to walk off stage for some reason?
No. We've always done the gigs and played, and if we didn't like the gigs, we still did it and
finished it up and left.
Yeah, and just never call the guy back if you don't like the place.
What's happening with music today? How is artificial intelligence and people doing the computer generated music stuff?
Well, I don't think people go out to more as much because they get so much they could see online.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's all.
What about the quality? What about the quality of music? You know, the musicians.
I think the quality's still there. You know, the quality's still there.
Even with
it
computer,
changes a little bit. Music changes.
Even with the computer generated voice stuff, where their voices are doing crazy things because it's a computer.
Well, you know, I never recorded like that. I always did my own vocals, and there was no computers, no speeding it up, lowering it down. You know what I'm saying? I just performed. And I've been in Electric Lady Studios where they could have done that stuff. But I just performed the music and you know, I can't think of the word I'm trying to use, but there were no enhancements.
Yeah. Auto-tune?
Say that again?
Auto-tune is something they've been doing with their voices. It's like an auto-tune, makes their voice sound a lot better than it really is.
Yeah.
And then you hear them in a concert, and it's like, oh, they didn't sound like that. Or they're using auto-tune in concerts. There's some of the artists of the past, you sort of lose the pureness of their voices. Mm-hmm. Now you don't even know. It's like, oh, have you ever seen the movie Pure Country?
No.
It's a George Strait movie.
Uh-huh.
And you know who George Strait, of course, is, right? So George Strait stars in this movie, and this woman, I forget what happened. She likes him romantically, but she kind of becomes his agent. And she's like, he's really good. And he likes simple, I play the guitar, I sing songs, and people love it. And in the movie, they kind of push him toward pyrotechnics. They've got fireworks going off. There's smoke on the stage. It's all this other stuff. And he ends up leaving the show and going away and just disappears until he comes back and says, I'm not going to sing that way. I'm going to sing with my guitar and my voice. in my band and not all the other stuff.
You know, I've been, especially in Europe, a lot of places they have, what's it? The smoke goes behind you.
The fog machine
fog
stuff.
machines and stuff and all that. And, you know, and in one, you know, once I fussed a little bit on stage about it, you know, and I fussed to the promoter on the break, you know, and he goes, listen, that's the way we do it here. I'm sorry, you know, and I just went with it, you know. I didn't like it, but I went with it.
Because I guess it's all about the show for the people. If they like fog, I don't know. I mean, I know it makes the lights shine better. It seems to as it cuts it, but I don't know if there's any.
I like playing in small clubs the best,
Yeah.
rather than
fog machine clubs.
yeah.
Today, who would you say is the most talented artist out there that you know of in terms of, they don't have to be a celebrity, but who's the most talented artist you think today that is alive?
I can't answer that question because there's so many that I don't even know about. I could tell you who some of my favorites are, but
Okay.
I can't speak like who's the best because I don't know who's the best. You know?
Sure. Who would you admire then as being
Of today. It's got to be today's music.
Yeah.
I like Kim Wilson and the Fabulous Thunderbirds. And I love the way Kim plays the harp. And have you heard of Kim Wilson? You've heard of the Fabulous Thunderbirds,
I've
right?
heard of that, but not Kim Wilson.
Well, Kim Wilson was the founder of the Fabulous Thunderbirds. He's
Okay.
the singer and blows the harp.
Well, see, the way I look at music, I think it's differently than the way you look at music, because I'm just a fan who's not
Right.
musically talented.
Right.
But you know it. You know the keys, chords. When something's even off, I may not pick up on it, but you would. You go, oh, that was a little sharp, or that was a little whatever.
Right. Yep.
Do you do that to music? Do you ever just enjoy it, or at the same time you go, ugh,
No.
how you would do things differently? Would you? I don't know what the word is. Would you stage it differently? Would you? Oh, I would have done this.
This is what I do with music, like that I don't like. When not that I don't like. Let's say you're a new guy in my band,
Right.
a bass player, a guitar player. You do something. If I don't like it, I'll turn around and I'll look at the guy, and then I'll tell him later on, not during the set.
Okay.
Change this, do this, do this. You know, I like a very basic sound. You know, and I don't like reverb on the guitar, not too much of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you know, and my bass players know that they have to play specific lines. It's not just they have to play specific lines. Different songs have different lines, and you know, and
Yeah.
and the bass player has to keep it really, really simple. I like the bass and the drums to set me up like I'm sitting on a big couch. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And then me and the guitar player can improvise. The bass player and the drummers just keep it steady for me.
Yeah. Your music, I got to tell you, when you go back, and I listened to a lot of your songs, and I actually kind of picked out one of my favorites. Jake, you got it on cut one there.
That's from my first recording. You
Yeah.
know, first I made records with Hubert Sumlin and Jimmy Rogers and Pine Top, and then the record company gave me mine. That was on my first record.
What studio? Where were you recording that?
I recorded that in Electric Lady Studios.
Yep.
My wife used to work there, you know.
Where is that at?
Electric Lady Studios is on 6th Street in the Village.
Oh, okay. Okay. And
Jimi Hendrix used to own it.
you know, I don't know this stuff.
You don't know that?
I know who Jimi Hendrix is, but I didn't know he owned it.
Yeah, Jimi Hendrix owned Electric Lady Studios. Then
Wow.
he sold it eventually, and, you know.
And you had a full band there, engineer and everything. Did you?
Oh, yeah. It has this big-time studio. But you see, I got recording there for free because my wife was working there. She was the bookkeeper.
That's good stuff. You got a connection. Your wife.
She's the best.
Let's talk about that. You wrote a song for her?
Yeah,
Nobody Knows New York.
yeah.
It's interesting.
It's a great song.
It is a great song. You talk about the lines are really good.
Well, it's a true story, you know. You know what's funny?
It's about how you met your wife, right?
Yeah, her ex-boyfriend came in and bought that CD.
Really?
Yeah, I was his favorite band.
Oh.
He used to come all, and he even came after I took his wife. He still came to a couple of shows.
Well, he's a fan. It wasn't meant to be, but what year was that you met your wife?
Let's see. Probably 87, 88, 85.
And that was in New York?
Yeah, I was doing a show. He used to bring her every Thursday. I had a regular show in the Village, Little Mike and the Tornadoes, every Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
We would go on at 1 o'clock in the morning and play until 3.
Wow.
He would come every week and bring the same girl. And one day she came without him. And I met her. I tried to kiss her. She goes, "What are you doing?" And, right away I'm thinking, and she says, "Give me your number. I'll call you up. Maybe we'll go out sometime." And she called me up with my friend.
Mm-hmm.
So it was 4 of us, it was her and her girlfriend and me and the bass player. And we went out. And then I guess at some point she started to really like me because...
You're together still to this day, married.
Yeah, been married for 34 years.
So some context, this song that's called Nobody Knows New York, which is based on how you met your wife, basically says, don't, bring your girlfriend to New York. You might lose her to a guy, whether it's you or somebody else. But in this case, it was a true story.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was a creative song, and it's written very well.
It's a lot of people. You're not the first guy that's complimented that song.
Well, it's a love story.
Mm-hmm.
It's how you met.
Mm-hmm.
So New York City, a place you go back to, you still play in New York or Chicago or anywhere like that?
No.
Okay.
But I did go to New York recently. I went, but I went because I went to Yankee Stadium to some Yankee games.
Big Yankees fan?
Big time.
You haven't lost your accent.
No, I made sure. I made sure that I sounded who I was.
Yeah.
When I came down here. I'm glad I didn't lose my accent.
Well, you got the hat on the table here. That's and what's even more important than that hat is that harmonica sitting right there. You play that thing very well.
You want me to play a little?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind.
Am I too close or far enough?
You got you.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm. Tell me something. That instrument. I remember being a little kid, and they give you these little plastic ones at the at the fairgrounds. You won it or something like that. Are there chords, notes, and things on a harmonica that you have to play? How does that work?
Yeah, just play the chord.
What?
A chord is just two notes together.
Okay.
Sometimes the 2 notes don't work, but so chord could be 2 notes, 3 notes, 4 notes. So this is like 3 or 4 notes. See, I'm blowing high and I'm blowing low.
Okay.
So those are all chords.
I could never do it.
Listen, I've been playing for 55, 60 years. I'm 14 and I'm 67 now. What's that, 53 years?
Yeah.
It took me a long time to, when I first started playing, and Pine Top is with me, right? And I'm asking Pine Top how I sound, right?
Mm-hmm.
'Cause, I want him to know he's like the legend, I wanted to know. I was only like 25, 30 years old. I think I was 28, 29 when I met Pine Top. And he says, you're playing, I forgot exactly what he said. He says, "You're steady rolling, Mike, you're steady rolling." I said, "Is that good?" And Brad Vickers goes, "That means you play too much." And Pine Top shook his head. So after that, I started cutting back and playing less and listening more. And, and that got me, it was good. It gave me great information.
Harmonica is not an instrument that people play a ton of. The only person that I can name, other than if you'd asked me to this day who plays it, I know Little Mike plays it and Clint Black.
You never heard of Paul Butterfield?
No.
Really?
Mm-mm.
He's a great harmonica player.
Is it alive today? People still playing harmonica or?
People still play harmonica. Kim Wilson, I told you about Kim
Yeah,
Wilson
yeah.
from the Thunderbirds.
I'm going to look them up, by the way, now.
Look up James Cotton.
James Cotton?
James Cotton is the harmonica player that James Cotton was Muddy Waters' harmonica player, and he was also his bodyguard.
Is James Cotton still alive or no?
No.
Okay.
All these guys are dead, but Louis Myers is dead, and he used to play guitar for Little Walter, who was also a harmonica player. Little Walter got beat up in a bar. Always said too much to the wrong people.
I want to hear the story.
What?
Why did he get beat up in the bar? Was there more than one time, or
he tried to pick up this guy's wife? The guy fucking beat him up and killed him.
Yeah.
So
I got you.
And the guy never even went to jail. But he was always doing stuff like that. So anyway, that was Little Walter, was a great harmonica player too. So these are the guys that were so influenced to me that a lot of people don't really know about unless they were like me and truly, truly love the blues. And most people my age weren't into the blues. They were into the Rolling Stones and all those kinds of bands.
Did you ever see any crossover from bands? I mean, crossover like Rolling Stones or other bands who had like a major respect for the blues and liking it, or was there any collaboration at all?
There was a lot of it.
Okay.
There's a lot of it. Eric Clapton made a record with Jimmy Rogers, just like I did. The Rolling Stones used to go to Muddy Waters' gigs and used to sit in with them, so Keith. If you look at the way Keith Richards played guitar, he could have very been a blues guitar player. He has that sound, Part of it is the way he tuned his guitar. He tuned his guitar down to G tuning. It wasn't in standard tuning. It was G tuning. It was tuned to a G chord.
What does that do for him?
You could slide. You could play slide better,
Sure.
and you can, like if you put on a Rolling Stones album, I could tell you which songs he's playing G tuning just from listening to.
Are you able to listen to someone play what they're playing? Can you, or do you read music? Were you classically trained?
I can't read it. No, I can't. But I could play it. I could play on records, and stuff like that. And that's how I learned.
So she's not real. Well, she's popular, but not real popular right now. And that's Roseanne. Remember Roseanne Barr, the Roseanne show?
Yeah.
It was on TV. That starts off with a harmonica in the very beginning. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about or not, but
yeah, I know what you're talking about. That's
it's pretty good stuff.
There's lots of harmonicas out there. You just have to listen for it, For me, it comes automatically because I know what it sounds like because I've been playing for so long.
Well, there are instruments that I like. So you got harmonica. My top three probably that I like, probably because they're not the most common. It's not electric or an acoustic or a drum or piano. It's harmonica. It's the banjo, and it's steel guitar. I love a steel guitar. I love steel. Now, you're talented. You play piano too?
I play piano.
And you self-taught yourself all this?
Yeah. I tried to take piano lessons when I was 16, My mother rented a piano for me. We couldn't afford a piano. We rented a piano. It was, we were on the third floor, they had to carry it up. Anyway, we rented the piano, and she says, I'll rent the piano, but you have to take lessons. So I took about like 4 or 5 months of lessons, and the guy goes, listen, you never practice anything I give you. I said, well, I don't really like this kind of music. He says, well, bring in a sample, something you like. So I brought in a sample of a record of Otis Spann. Otis Spann was a great piano player. He was Muddy Waters' cousin. And he says, I'm sorry, I cannot teach that. So I went home, I told my mother, listen, my guy can't teach what I want. So I was able to keep the piano and get out of music lessons, which is kind of what I wanted. But then I taught myself to play,
Sure. And you, harmonica is number one instrument you play, but then piano in terms of how much you play it during a show?
Yeah. I don't really play the piano anymore in the show unless, because it's so much work to set it up,
Mm-hmm. Who's the most important person on stage during a show as far as the instrument goes?
There is no most important.
Okay.
Everybody, it's equal. If the bass player's not doing his job, me and the guitar player sound like shit. They may not know it's the bass player. If the drummer's playing out of whack, we sound like, you know what I'm saying?
Does everybody have a night, an off night at some point where it's just like, that wasn't my
Not
best?
anymore. Not in my band.
No?
Because everybody knows what to do, and they do it, and they do it well. And
If they don't, they're not there anymore?
well, no, it's not really that.
Okay.
It's they want to do a good job. It's not because they're going to get fired if they don't.
Right.
I'm not Ray Charles, you know. Ray Charles is blind, and he can pick out the horn players. You're out in the middle of the show. You know?
Wow.
I'm not like that.
You ever have a chance to get on stage with a celebrity or interaction in a show?
Yeah.
We talked about, you said Jimmy Rogers.
Jimmy Rogers, I used to tour with Jimmy Rogers.
What about Eric Clapton? Did you ever get on stage with him or no?
No. I got on stage with Robert Cray, or really, he got on stage with me.
Okay.
Because I was playing with Hubert Sumlin and really wanted to play with Hubert, you know, Robert Cray. You know who Robert Cray is, right?
I don't. You got to remember, I'm a little bit younger. Not much younger, but a little bit.
Robert Cray is a great guitar player. He's from out west.
Okay.
He's probably 10 years, 15 years older than me. But he's a big star, you know, and he sat in with me. Jorma Kaukonen sat in with me. You know who Jorma Kaukonen is, right? Jefferson Airplane.
I don't want to say no again.
Okay, Jefferson Airplane. He played with Jefferson Airplane, which, of course, that was a California band, you know.
Was blues out in California, or was it primarily a?
Yeah, blues is all over, yeah.
Well, I know, but it was in Chicago, or at least there was different kinds of blues.
Yeah, and there is all different kinds of blues. I happen to like the Chicago style.
Well, what separates it? What makes it different? What makes a Chicago versus a California or a New York?
Sometimes it's the instrument. Like, you know, like I love B.B. King, but I can't play like B.B. King. I'm, you know, you know, that's a different kind of blues. B.B. King was out of Memphis, you know, and
which is they named Bill Street after him, I think, or something like that. I've been to Memphis once.
Yeah,
maybe one too many times, just once. It wasn't bad.
I like Memphis. I played Memphis many times. I like Memphis.
What's the biggest crowd you've played in front of?
It was with Pine Top. I think it was Pine Top and Hubert Sumlin. Hubert was Howlin' Wolf's guitar player. And we did a show up in Montreal, in Quebec, you know, in Montreal. And it must have been 10,000 people at the show. And
Going crazy?
yeah, I sold a lot of CDs. It was a great show, great show.
What's the prep like before the show goes on? Is there an adrenaline rush? Is it?
You know, they make sure all the stuff's working just like he did, you know, and once everything's working, it's time to go, you know. And
Just go do it.
just go and play. Just if you're upset about the big crowd, close your eyes, pretend you're in a small place. I almost close my eyes when I play anyway.
I saw that in one of your songs.
I always do. Yeah.
It's just because it's how you feel it, I guess.
Yeah, I just close my eyes. Occasionally they're open, but you know, I close my eyes mostly.
Where do your songs come from? You wrote a lot of them, or?
Mostly, yeah. You know, I had that stroke seven years ago, right? I haven't written a song since the stroke. But before that, I used to write lots of songs, you know.
What did you do? How did you do that? It's not just sit down at a computer.
They come to me. No, they just come to me. Once I was, you know, I gave up playing full time when I was about, 40. I started doing other things. I would still play, but I would do other things. And then I started playing local. And so I'm telling you this because it's how I'm going to lead to how I wrote a song. So I was a teacher for a while, right? So I'm teaching at Wiles. I'm riding in the car, and all of a sudden the words come into my head. The bass line is in my head. Now it's all in my head. And I know that if I don't write it down right away, I'm going to lose the whole thing, you know? I drive to school. I go right to my classroom. You know, I was a PE teacher, so I write them down right away, and then I had the song.
Done.
It just came into my head when I was driving.
Whole song?
Whole song. I've done that a lot of times in the car.
Just wrote it down. Did you ever take songs from anywhere else? And not take, I mean like...
Yeah, you're always influenced. All my songs are influenced by other songs. That's how it is.
Yeah.
Almost every one of them. Yeah.
Are your original albums, original songs, your songs, or did you have? Is there a co-writer or somebody else who wrote, co-author that wrote with you, or?
No, I mostly wrote more of them. Occasionally, I had somebody might write parts of a song or some words, but basically me.
I got to tell you, and this is no insult to other artists because everybody's different. But I've heard some people do some originals like at local shows at restaurants. I'm like, can you stick to the cover songs? Because
Listen,
sometimes originals don't always turn out if you're not. I mean, everybody thinks they're a writer.
well, listen. Everybody tries. Everybody's
Okay.
out there trying. This is a very difficult life,
Yeah,
being a musician.
yeah.
That's why I was an umpire. I used to wash houses. I was a teacher, and I remember telling my wife, honey, I made my living this week doing 4 different professions. I was umpiring, I washed a house, I taught school, and I played music.
She goes to a lot of your concerts or went to all of them.
She went to a lot of them, yeah.
Now for her, at some point, it's like, look, I've heard this song before, over and over. I mean, she bring friends and just hang out, or
Yeah.
listen. I guess I'm projecting, but my wife would get bored and go, Ben, I'm not gonna. I'll sit here, but I'm gonna be on my phone because I've heard you sing that over and over and over.
Well, I guess everybody's different.
Yeah, I guess you're right. That's a good way of putting it. Whoa. Let me stop you right there.
But why?
I got to tell you about Bakari Realty.
What's a Bakari Realty?
We're a full-service real estate firm in North Central Florida working with buyers and sellers to buy and sell property.
North Central Florida. Is there a desert there?
No, there's no desert in North Central Florida. But there are a lot of people moving here from the desert and all over the country.
You think you can help me to move to Florida?
I've never sold anything to a cactus, but we can certainly try.
Okay, so I need to know how to get a hold of you.
Well, you can look at my phone number up. It's online. It's also on the bottom of the screen here, and I'll also give it to you, 386-462-5130.
Well, I'll do that. I just hope I don't stick you.
Take me back to New York City. What's the name a club that you'd play in a lot, and what did that look like?
Well, I used to play the Bitter End Cafe. That's where I met my wife. I had a steady Thursday. And occasionally, like, if they needed a band on a Saturday, if somebody couldn't make it or something, they'd call me up. And so that club, you would walk in. It was, like, narrow, and then it got wider. There was the bar, and there was the stage, and you sat down, and then there was a back room. And they had a piano on stage, an acoustic piano. That's why I love playing that gig. Had an acoustic piano on stage.
Acoustic piano, would that just be what I would just like a baby grand or something?
Yeah,
or
it was a baby grand. It's a baby grand piano.
versus pianos now that have electric and all that stuff.
Yeah, acoustic piano. But that's what's good for the blues. Like, that's what Pine Top played. He didn't want an electric piano. He could do it if he had to, but acoustic piano's where you want to be.
So what about Elvis Presley?
Elvis Presley, was really loved blues.
Mm-hmm.
Elvis Presley was doing really good until he met, I don't want to say anything about his manager because I don't want to end up getting sued, but Elvis Presley was really a great artist and wasn't really a great singer, but obviously 50 million fans can't be wrong.
Yeah.
But he really loved blues. And when I used to play with Cab Luck, he used to do a lot of Elvis songs that he didn't write, And so, like, Elvis hung out with Big Mama Thornton.
Well, see, that's been a controversy is that Elvis ripped off her songs, right?
Well, that's the way it goes. You're always influenced by other people. And it's not only that you rip them off, it's... a lot of times it's the people working for him that say, listen, you changed this, you changed that, this is your song now. Things like that,
Mm-hmm.
But he loved Big Mama Thornton.
Did you ever meet Elvis?
No,
Watch a show? Go to a show?
no. I had tickets for the Garden when he died.
Really?
I was going to take my mother to the Garden. I was about 22. I was going to take my mother. She was maybe 50. She's 30 years, 28 years
Mm-hmm.
older than me. I was going to take her to the Garden,
Madison Square Garden.
and he got killed.
Mm.
He overdosed and he died.
How long ago was that before the show?
I was 20. Oh, I don't know, maybe a week.
Oh, it was a week out.
So they wouldn't I got my tickets back, but a lot of people wouldn't sell their tickets. Because I was working for my uncle at the time, and he was a ticket broker, and they all wanted refunds, but they didn't want to give up the tickets. But if you don't give up the tickets, how can we give you a refund?
That's right. That's right.
But they wanted to keep the tickets because it was his last show.
Mm-hmm. You ever see any? Did you see Michael Jackson?
No.
Did you like his music or not really?
Nah,
We did a lot of dancing.
that wasn't me. It
Yeah.
wasn't the kind of music I liked. I like Frank Sinatra,
Yeah. Was Frank Sinatra from New York?
Jersey.
Jersey? Close enough, right?
It's almost New York, yeah.
From a Florida guy, Jersey, New York, it's all the same.
My
sort of.
wife's Jersey.
Oh, so she's from New Jersey.
Yeah.
Well, Jersey's how close to New York City? It's just across
Just
the
divided by
bridge?
the river.
Just
Yeah,
the river
it's
right
the
there.
West Side River.
So why can't just combine it all? We're all from New York. We're all from New.
That's how pretty much Jersey is. Everybody, she's basically a New Yorker.
Right, exactly.
Plus, she worked in the city. She worked for Electric Lady Studios.
I've got a. You're gonna have to. You would know more than I know. I knew this lady's great uncle. I didn't know her. I didn't know him, but he had died. So I went to Queens, New York, back in '99 to help someone pack up an apartment. It was a brother and sister that had lived together for 50 years, never married, never had kids. And I was helping this woman, an older woman, out, box everything up. So I've been to Queens once, spent a couple nights in this old apartment, probably very much what you described, where you grew up. And she had all this stuff. So some years later, she didn't want any of the stuff, but I was going through it. And he worked he actually hosted a show on ABC at one time, but he had this little line gold pen with diamond eyes. It says Leows, Leos on it.
Lowe's Theaters.
Yes. I've got wings from the theater that they would wear, I guess, while on stage.
Uh-huh.
And I've got that pen that was kind of given to all the employees. All this New York stuff that I've got that she just didn't want. And I'm like, I'm not throwing it away. It's really cool stuff.
Nice.
But it's from the theaters up there and
Yeah,
stuff.
Lowe's.
yeah.
Loews.
There you go. Thank you. I think I went the wrong way with it.
Not like Lowe's, Lowes.
Yeah, we're not buying lumber. Broadway? You do Broadway?
I never played Broadway. I worked on Broadway.
Okay.
When I got out of college, I went to work for my uncle. I had 3 uncles and a cousin, all in the ticket business.
Mm.
And I worked for my uncles in the ticket business, and as a messenger. So as a messenger, I would go up to Yankee Stadium every home game. So that's 81 times a year.
Wow.
Right? Because I would have to bring tickets or reservations or get tickets. I'd always go up to Yankee Stadium. And then same thing with the Mets. I will always, it would be the end of my workday, usually he'd say, listen, at like 4 o'clock, listen, go up to Yankee Stadium, then go home. That would be my last stop. So I would go up to Yankee Stadium a lot, and Shea Stadium, and I knew all the guys that sold the tickets,
Mm-hmm.
and so like I would talk to at Yankee Stadium. It was Joe and Phil,
Okay.
and Joe. I would sometimes stop in this place and get these hot dogs, and I'd buy like a dozen of them. The mustard and sauerkraut. It was in the bar, a little bar,
Mm-hmm.
and they had a hot dog stand, and they had the best hot dogs. And I would go and I said, "Listen, Joe, I brought you a sandwich." Sometimes I would bring donuts, and he would say, "Anytime you want to come to a game, Mike, you call me up, and you take his pass off his neck, just stop in at the end of the game and give me the pass back, and I could go into the games, right?" And I would sit in the press level, And it was the same thing at Shea Stadium, And that guy was also Joe. That was Joe Mellon,
Who were some of the big stars you were watching when you were going to the Yankees games?
Oh, man. Thurman Munson, Reggie Jackson,
Yeah.
Catfish Hunter, I remember once they were playing Boston, you know.
The Red Sox, that's a rivalry, right?
Yeah, big time rivalry. And, you know, so that's why I'm a big Yankees fan, you know, more so than the Mets. And then I got a job working in the box office. And so now I was doing what Joe did, but I was working for the Majestic Theater. First I went to the Radio City Music Hall, then I went to the Schubert Theater, and I went to the Majestic Theater. And, you know, when you're in the box office, you can go see every show, and you could go for free, you know? So I was in the Majestic when 42nd Street was playing for the longest time. And, you know, it was a great job.
Yeah.
But, you know, when I started making money playing music, when I started making about $250 a week, this was probably around 87, 85. When I started making $250 a week, I quit that job. Even though my uncle, you know, worked really hard for me to get that job, I kept it for about 7 or 8 years. Then I went into the music business full time when I was around 85. So in 85, I was like 30.
So you're lead singer for your band. Did you ever go and sing the national anthem at a ball game?
No.
No.
But my daughter sung once the national anthem at Santa Fe High School.
Oh, okay.
With Elliot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, that was cool.
Well, how do you adapt to rural life from New York? Big change, right? City?
I love where I live.
Yeah.
I'm on 10 acres, 9.89 acres. It's great, you know. I'm the only one there, you know, except my wife comes home at night, you know, for work, and it's great. I love it, and she loves it, and we've been there since 1990.
Good stuff. Raise your family too.
Yeah, you know, I got them all in sports. My daughter, my son, they were always sports. You know, my wife says to me, she goes, "I didn't realize that you were so much of a sports guy." She goes, "I just thought you were a musician." I said, "Well, you know."
Yeah, the Yankees.
I always loved the Yankees.
Sure. Little Mike, thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
And thank you for talking the blues with me today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. And thank you.
Appreciate your time.